Hello and welcome to episode 73 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is December 22nd, and together with Robert and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So this is the last episode for this year 2021. And like last year, we are very honored to have Jürgen Thomas here with us to look back at 2021 and discuss a little of what we did. So welcome, Jürgen.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the opportunity.
Sure. Well, it's really fantastic. Like I said, it's really an honor to have you here, because I think when we look at Microsoft, when we look at SAP, your name always comes up. So it's really great to have you here. And I said what we wanted to do is maybe just take a look at 2021, what we did from your perspective. Maybe what were some of the highlights that we did, maybe some of the lowlights, and just take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, looking back into the year 2021, obviously for everybody is still a challenging year with the circumstances we are living in worldwide with the pandemic. Certainly certainly also a year that we were very busy. Where personally in our team, we strengthened the team. We added more people into the team, simply due to the work that we have, due to the challenges that we have. Now, one of the things that we from our team focused a lot on, and that's also something that we are building out more and more, is the deeper penetration of the SAP workload into our infrastructure test frameworks, automated frameworks that we build up. That sometimes then had some results for customers as well. Lately, we put a public GitHub project out called Copy, which is basically a result of work that we invested over the last 15 months, where we go deeper in the penetration into the test frameworks with specific SAP workload, with workload on SAP Hana, that we are running in early developments. Early developments, that means early developments of hardware, new hardware types that we are using, new host servers that we are using, of a new generation processes. But it's also true for software, and it's even true for configuration settings to a degree that we are doing on existing hardware, or software changes on existing hardware. So that was a big topic item for us, the automation of these tests. And everybody knows who is in the SAP business, test automation with SAP software is not exactly an easy one. It is like also the configuration itself, the infrastructure configuration is already a challenging one. Especially when you need quite a number of VMs in the application layer, database layer, or if you also want to have a high availability configuration you tested. And so that was quite a lot of work that we put into that. It also resulted in good results. Good results meaning we could make qualitative statements about new software or new hardware that we intended to ship, that we intended to get into the fleet. Now, the good results might not have been good results for our developers, because we in some cases detected things that were not working. But at the end, from a customer point of view, it was good results, because we could make qualitative statements about the state of software, the state of hardware. So as mentioned, that was a big area we invested in and put a lot of efforts in. We also,
Jürgen, basically they are not just the standard benchmarking tests like SD benchmark or those BW, and this is more so. It leads to more stability, so to say, and more quality of the overall experience.
Yeah, exactly. So the BW benchmark is certainly part of it as well.
Right. Yeah.
But it's also we also want to have then other tests overlapping with it. And again, it's really about the functionality, quality, but also performance impacts of certain things that we intend to do, configuration changes. We do know that, for example, microcode changes on the bias level can have impact on the overall performance of hosts, and so testing SAP workload against it is very important for us and for our customers as well, because we want to deliver deterministic performance, and we don't want to degrade the performance at all. So that certainly was quite work. Then another area that we certainly invested was our high availability configurations. Again, we had shared disk going out as a product, becoming GA. Very interesting, especially since we now have a zonal replication for the shared disk as well. A great good. With the zonal replication, a very good product to have it easy to build Windows clusters for SCS and SCS, and certainly a big work item where we invested a lot of resources in the team and efforts was our NFS service on Azure Files that is now general available. We had a blog released by the product team, I think last week or a week before. So no doubt that took a lot of efforts from our side, testing a lot of SAP scenarios, testing, also detecting problems with the product, but giving us a very good idea what scenarios can be supported, what scenarios we are not able to support yet with the product. Which is important because in our documentation these findings are reflected. No doubt about our development team is working in enabling the other scenarios as well. It will take a little bit more time, but we do have a product that can be used at this point in time for certain scenarios like submount, like transfer. Very cost efficient, very cost effective product. So from that side, certainly something that we like to see. And as usual, we are very dynamic in our development. We will subsequently over the next year improve the service and enable other scenarios in the SAP workload space as well for the product. So that also was a bigger item. And one that fell a little bit short, I need to admit, and I would consider that a little bit as a low light, is certainly we released a new hardware or new VM types with EV5 and DV5. We were hanging a little bit behind in the certification for NetWeaver. We are in the process of finishing that. So I hope beginning next year that we have them then NetWeaver certified, and then for the Hana certification we look into Q1 for some of those new types as we need to meet certain KPIs. We basically will take selective ones that fulfill these KPIs and then try to get Hana certified. And so yeah, it's pretty. As mentioned, we are a little bit late in that one compared to when we released it, but no worry, it's getting done within the first quarter. NetWeaver certification even sooner. So that's also a pretty good one. Hana large instances, we put a lot of efforts in certifying different Optane SKUs. The persistent memory. Optane by Intel is one of those functionalities that we as the only cloud offer, hyperscale cloud offer with our Hana large instances, and SAP certainly wants to see certifications of those. Was also to a degree very challenging. This is also still relatively new technology that we well, that we certified here, and their experiences as we have on DRAM is missing to a degree. So good learnings that we had out of that. We also have a customer that is using these things, or these large units, really with Optane. And so, yeah, we worked quite a bit in that space and put quite a bit of efforts in that space, which is very, very good to know, to get experience with it, and then we'll see how the technology will advance. Yeah, it's probably that very interesting customer projects as well. Certainly always challenging, and always to a degree high availability, disaster recovery requirements that certainly push us always harder. So I'm the last one arguing that we are the ultimate complete platform that can fulfill everything in anything that you ever wished and desired. It's not the case, obviously, but we are in these projects in a very healthy and a productive conversation with our customers or partners, and really get very good inputs, very good feedbacks, where we then can take them and really develop into those directions. And so it's very good findings this year, very good feedback this year that we to a degree turned around and are already working on. You see that, for example, in the zonal replication that we have in Azure Shared Disk, and more important, for NFS on Azure Files, zonal replication being one of the attractive functionalities of those storages.
I mean, I guess like the zones we solve both Linux and Windows high availability for central service in some way, we can say, in a nice way, so to say. It's synchronous replication, it's a seamless failover, no need for customer to do anything there on a file share or a shared disk, whatever is being used, right? So
no, that's as mentioned. That's these things certainly came from feedback with customers, came from feedback especially from SAP customers, and so yeah, that's things that we like to turn around here and then productize.
Yeah, I like there then with all these components, with the new services, with the high availability configuration, that we then also take these lessons learned or components and, for example, document them on docs.microsoft.com, that we have the automation framework where we help customers to deploy these infrastructures, that we worked with SAP on the cloud appliance library, where we then really take all these features that we have developed, that we made available in Azure, and then we abstract it basically and make it easier for customers to consume. And again, there we have our own automation framework, which I think with Terraform, with Ansible, that we introduced recently, that is very powerful, very flexible. But then we also have the CAL deployment that we worked very closely with SAP, actually, where we had joined architecture reference discussions with your team, with SAP and so on.
No, I mean, the one thing is also clear. There is no one single way that is being used by customers and partners to deploy infrastructure on Azure, to deploy SAP software in this infrastructure. They are dependent on customer partner. There are many different ways that are being used. For example, one of the observations we definitely have is that in the automation space, a lot of partners and customers move to Terraform Ansible, and that is feedback we got last year about that basically resulted in the product in the project that we are having, the GitHub project of Terraform Ansible, which is tremendously successful. And we are working very closely with partners in that space and customers to get feedback or in order to then prioritize functionalities that we want to implement in there. And even then, with the Terraform Ansible framework that we have, it is extensible. I mean, the point is that we want to give the partners and the customers tools. We are not taking, we are not having the attitude saying, well, we give you a complete run book or playbook here. No, it is really a modular thing that you as a partner can integrate into your own tools that you mostly have already. Customers do have a framework very often as well, because they are not only deploying SAP software on Azure, let's be clear about that. And so, or have even multi-platform implementations of their software across multiple platforms, where they standardize on something like Terraform, Ansible. And so this is a tool set that is adaptable, that is extensible by partners and customers. On the other side, we do have customers that want to use something, want to have an easier deployment, something that CAL can help them at the end of the day. And so, yeah, the same is with our documentation, where we describe how an architecture looks like. There are customers that say, hey, look, I mean, I want to do my PowerShell automation, and PowerShell automation, like we Microsoft, for example, did. And so we want to serve everybody here, and yeah, it's a lot of effort and in documentation to do, but it is worth doing it, and it helps tremendously. There are also great efforts, and like one thing I can tell, we have another quality check tool that is developed. There will be a next version in the first week of January. We'll write some together with the developers of that tool. We are going to write some documentation, a blog around it. Very a great tool, an awesome tool, especially for self-service of a customer to figure out, am I along with the or am I is my SAP deployment conform with what Microsoft and SAP recommend? Referencing SAP notes where that state, this and that issue needs to have a different Linux kernel, pacemaker cluster configurations, comparison whether those are within the documentation that we released. These kinds of tools are super important, and these getting those into the public, getting those accessible for the customers is super important, because customers then really can improve the quality of the deployments, and with that one avoid incidents.
Yeah, true. I know you are also, I mean, Azure is constantly changing. You are also working on a new refresh PPG concept, for example, as a kind of important topic.
Yeah, that's a good topic as well. Yeah, the proximity placement groups. I mean, it's also a demonstration of how Azure does change over time. I mean, when we came out with proximity placement groups, that was a time when availability zones were just at the beginning, and where we had in some of our regions reasonable large problems with network latency between different layers of an SAP workload implementation, like the application layer to the database layer. Simply our constructs that we had to provide co-location were not good enough. And a lot of things changed meanwhile. So, but to be precise, as PPGs were introduced in a few years back, we said, look, let's take all the stack, let's take the whole stack of database, ASCS, SCS, and the application layer VMs into one proximity placement group, which then provides co-location under what we call a network spine that usually correlates to data centers. Not always the case, but usually kind of correlates to a data center, which then provides obviously a great network latency that's somewhere in the 0.2, 0.3 milliseconds usually, as always with some exceptions eventually. But that perfectly fine, but at the same token, especially in our large regions that do have quite a few data centers, where even a single availability zone is often more than one data center, caused then some ripple effects. Ripple effects being, for example, that we were introducing a new VM type, a new VM family that required a new generation of hardware. And us not being able to put the new generation of hardware into the data center the customer already deployed. Not being able simply out of the reasons that there's no power anymore, there might be no square footage anymore to put that hardware down. And so suddenly it ends up in the neighborhood data center for in the same availability zone. But PPGs now restricting the customer deployment to stick within in that network spine, and not being able to accept VMs that are in another network spine to be deployed. And so that these things became more and more restrictive for existing customers. On the other token, our infrastructure and network folks really also listening to feedback, as a result, improving the network infrastructure, improving the way how regions are getting built out, improving the network latency within an availability zone dramatically, but also between availability zones. So especially the improvements that were applied worldwide to all the regions in the communication of within an availability zone, in the cases where multiple data centers are building up one availability zone, resulted today in the fact that we can ease up a little bit in our usage of the proximity placement groups, where we now can argue, you know what, if you deploying into an availability zone, the network latency usually in all our regions is acceptable and good enough so that you don't need to force these different layers into one single network spine. As long as you stay within the availability zone, you're fine if the application layer is running under one network spine and the database in another network spine. It's reflected in some documentation changes that we did in mid of November, so that should make things a bit easier, a bit more flexible in deploying and later on in the life cycle management, as you want to change the types, either because you want to become more cost efficient and more cost effective, or as you need to change different VM types because you're encountering more load, you need more larger memory as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's also change. Was also a change there that we did. Yeah. I think other areas that are also worth to mention, and I forgot that to a degree, we also, if you find more documentation on SAP IQ, formerly Sybase IQ, where we put quite a bit of investments in, again, feedback by customers. We did see an increasing numbers of customers coming, asking for it, and so we basically put some time aside and really dug into that and did some documentation about it.
Mm. Yeah, I think there are lots and lots of topics. If we go up the stack with Sybase, with other databases, when we talk about backup functionalities, the improvements that we have with Azure Backup for SAP. I think a lot of things happened there. When we look at Azure monitoring, all the things. For me, it's amazing what happened in the Azure monitoring area.
I mean, it's clear. I mean, the thing is where how we look into it is. Sure, I mean, everybody expects us to have VMs that are performing, that are at what the customer needs. but there's more that you expect as a customer from a public cloud. I mean, if it's just that I move my VM or my SAP software into a VM in public cloud, and then I need to take care of I still need to install my own backup software. Invest into a lot of monitoring stuff, and that's kind of defeated the purpose. What you expect in a public cloud as you move your SAP workload into it is certainly that you can maximize services that the public cloud has. A public cloud today needs to have a backup service. It needs to be able to back up at least the main databases. I would not say that we are completely finished in that journey, but we are certainly advancing in that journey. Things like monitoring as well, where we built up the Azure Monitor for SAP and certainly are extending that one. Another great opportunity, or another great product that one can use to basically overlay Azure telemetry, the telemetry that we are getting out of the VMs or out of particular components like Sybase or like Hana and so on. So these are things that you expect when you move into cloud, and this the work goes on in that. That's certainly more focused than ever that we have on that, and that's certainly where the journey is going towards. As mentioned, not to say that what we are doing on getting new VMs out, getting new hosts out, improving the hypervisor layer is not important. We are still continuing to do that, and we are adding more work in order to really give a better integration story, give a better story where the move to cloud is not only that I'm replacing some servers that I formerly ran at home with infrastructure in the cloud, but I'm also replacing software that I'm using today that have a high maintenance and operations effort with a cloud service that we operate. We are taking over the operations, that we are taking over the installation, and where we want to make the integration and the usability of that service with SAP workload, with SAP components as easy as possible.
Yeah, I see maybe we didn't emphasize this, but this is really an aspect of general simplification of existing landscapes. Proximity placement groups, one example, but all those have high availability parts, another one. We forgot also the SBD devices on Linux as a shared disk, for example, as an example. So simplification, cost savings, compare how we had a year ago, and especially not to mention a few years back, right? And this is I mean, sometimes I think high availability can be too complex, then it's a low availability, and who would manage it, you know? So every simplification is warmly welcome, I mean, and brings the stability in general. That's great.
Absolutely. I mean, look, there are components in especially high availability, or if you look into backup, restore, if you look into disaster recovery, where the processes are complex by nature to a degree. I mean, it's like, and then where the functionalities that we get out of the operating systems that we get, that they are out in tools, are then becoming relatively complex from an operations point of view. I mean, we are talking high availability, disaster recovery. You need to be sure that these things are working. And so one of the tasks that we certainly have is to make these things easier. And the zonal replication is one of them, but also when we look at Azure Site Recovery, that does work with SAP workload very nicely and is being used by quite a few customers in their scenarios. Eventually not for the database part, but then at least for the application server part. A very undervalued functionality or product or service very often, but actually quite used by a lot of SAP customers to do DR, and so something that we probably in our case also should advertise a little bit more, I admit. but also a product group that steadily improves the service, adds the support for new releases of operating systems. So really a hardworking team and quite a successful service. So yeah, definitely backup service. You mentioned it already. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That is so. As I mentioned, the focus, there will be extended focus in the future of how, or from our side, in how to integrate with such services in a more easy manner, and how to offload operational tasks that customer have with tools that provide these functionalities. And then use things that we are providing, and there definitely we focus quite a bit on the SAP workload here, as mentioned, Azure Monitor for SAP, for example. Yeah. Yep.
I think these are beautiful examples of a lot of things that I think maybe we in the meantime already just take for granted. I mean, it feels so normal, so natural to use the Azure Monitor for SAP that it's just there, or the backup functionalities, or the high availability concepts. It's just, but I think for customers that really are on their journey to move from an on-premises environment into Azure, this is there are so many fantastic things that go way beyond the pure virtual machine with its compute and storage. That's for me something that I always really find impressive.
Take another one that there was hardly, or I didn't see any publication yet. Well, out of my team, we will have one hopefully soon. I'm just looking at the blog entry that I want to review. ILM, SAP ILM is now able to write directly into Azure Blob. So far, if you wanted to use Blob Store for archiving with ILM, you had to have some intermittent layer in between. Very often a product that you had to buy, that you had to operate, that you had to install. Now ILM can directly write into Azure Blob Store, and all you need to do is configure it, and that's the thing SAP already documented. We are going to have that in a blog, and so that's so that this fact is becoming known, because nobody made a splash about it, but it is actually quite an issue, especially if you want to restrict your memory requirements a little bit in the new S4 Hana world, and archiving and information lifecycle management is becoming more and more important. And the ideal thing is then saying, hey, I have a product, ILM product, that directly writes into Azure. SAP can do that now, and really cuts out other tools within between, other things that need to be installed, managed, operated, and so on. So pretty useful little feature and functionality that we have here, that SAP worked together on with us and finally released it. Fortunately.
And that's really a whole new world when we then talk about the application layer, basically. And I agree, the ILM integration that we did with SAP is really something successful. And I am actually already getting requests from customers that are interested in this, that are looking also at the immutable storage that we released on Azure, and how does this work together, and so on. So I think there is a lot of interest, but actually, when we are in the application layer, there are also so many other things. One thing that and Martin Pankratz was on the show several times already, where we talk about the private link integration to the business technology platform. When we look at the whole security, single sign-on stuff that we are doing with SAP, and then maybe to
I mean, let's be pretty honest. You mentioned this as another focus area that we have together with SAP is certainly the integration here between BTP as the PaaS cloud of SAP, hosting quite a bit of services, enabling customers to deploy applications, to deploy data marts, but on the other side, Azure as well with products like Teams and other services that you want to integrate into and that you want to have integrated in business processes that either are created by SAP themselves or where you as a customer want to create a flow, a workflow, a business process or extend the business process that takes services into account that are deployed on Azure. Things like private network connectivity between clouds eventually, or between services, super important, no doubt about any identity integration, and also event integration. You want to have these.
Yeah.
And these are basically foundations that enable you then to have a real seamless integration between BTP and Azure. Super important, and no doubt about you Holger, you stand for these kinds of integrations as an architect and a program manager in that space. So no doubt. As many, it's super important, clear again what we do in the VM side, that this thing's all reliable and so on, needs to be done. But we also clear indication here, we will focus in the future more attention in the area that we just talked about the integrations of BTP with Azure services, about integrations on the application, on the business process layer. So super important from our side, no doubt.
Jürgen, you also have a part of the team that is dealing on SAP Cloud Platform low-level layer as well, which is basically powering the upper integration, right? That Holger likes to use.
Yes.
No, it's a given that we as Microsoft certainly help SAP and support SAP with implementing their services, the cloud or BTP or base technologies like Gardener into Azure as well. We have people on the ground with SAP doing that. Also out of my team, out of the program management team, that have that task, and where I think we steadily increase our folks that are working here in that space quite a bit. And so yeah, it's a very successful cooperation in collaboration with SAP, very, very nice, and having good results with it. And also, I can argue, or I can confirm that there's a very frequent and a very vibrant communication on the executive level as well, on the SAP side as well as on the Microsoft side, about these services, about the way how they run on Azure, the reliability, the quality of the implementations, and so on. So we as Microsoft definitely feel responsible as well for the quality of BTP and on Azure or other LOB line of businesses, services of SAP that are running on Azure. It's not that we feel responsible for that as well, because we are in the boat together here with SAP. No doubt, there's no finger pointing and saying you implemented bad. If there would be a bad implementation, it's our fault as well, because we as Microsoft, we have a very, very good partnership with SAP. It is on us then to work with SAP to make things right and do things in the way how we think they need to be done on our platform. And in most of all the cases that I look at this point in time, these relationships are there. This work is ongoing, and so that I think we can categorize that as a very good collaboration and cooperation with SAP that we have in this partnership. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I actually think these are beautiful closing words, right?
Yeah.
Politically correct.
Yeah, I think we had a beautiful rundown of some of the topics, and I think the good collaboration that we have with SAP is, I think, a very nice closing, not only of this session, but also of the year, which obviously will continue next year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's like no doubt it will become an exciting year again. Opportunities are still there plenty, and especially when we look at us as well with opening new regions as well in some of the countries. That's becoming very interesting there as well to really address some of the local customers there that are not that want to stay in those regions or countries. So we'll tons of opportunities, but again, solidly build on a great partnership with SAP, and so we really, I mean, looking very positively into the new year. We all hope that the pandemic will ease up a little bit, and with that allow us to have more face-to-face communication again, and also then become a little bit more efficient in these kind of works again. But hey, we'll take it as it comes, and we'll work. We'll work very hard on it.
Cool.
Yeah. Then,
great. And I think
nice holiday.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
obviously wish everybody a nice holiday season, and hopefully great start into the new year.
Thank you very much. Yeah, same to you, same to everyone.
Yep.
And then let's see, Jürgen, hopefully we can talk to you again next year, maybe in the 100th episode, or let's see.
Even more. Let's see.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. Great. With that, thanks again for joining us here today. I wish everyone a nice break. We'll continue our podcast in January. We'll be back in January, and then I hope to see everyone there again.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.